Hi everyone, welcome along to DigiShift 92. Today we're going to be looking at developing your charity's 2026 digital roadmap. We're getting to the end of the year. This is why I have a bad Christmas jumper on for this particular DigiShift. We're joined by a range of guests today. So I'm Ross McCullough from Third Sector Lab, and my co-host today is Maddie Stark from SCVO. And joining us is going to be Alison Brogan, who's Cyber Resilience Coordinator at SCVO. Alison's going to be talking about cyber trends, lessons from 2025, and some key actions for 2026. We're going to be joined by Sathpal Singh, who's the founder of Green PO. Sathpal is going to be talking about green digital products and how we can bring sustainability when we're thinking about our digital journey. Harrold, who's co-founder of Neon Tribe and it's also the founder of Charity Camp. If you've never been, you should get along to that. Is going to be talking about AI for effectiveness and in brackets, not how you think. So I'm intrigued by this. And then finally, we're going to have Kit Powney, who's head of digital maturity at Tier Fund. And Kit's going to be talking about how you can co-create digital products and services, both with beneficiaries and partners as well. And then we'll have a chance for open discussion, really get into the kind of nitty-gritty of what are your plans for 2026, what feels like your big challenges for the next year, and how might people in this room be able to help you through some of that. So I'm going to not waste any more time and hand over to Alison, and we're going to look at some cyber trends, lessons from the year that's just passed, and then what are those key actions for 2026 for non-profits in the UK.
Thanks, Rob. Hi everyone, my name's Alison Brogan. I'm a Cyber Resilience Coordinator at SCVO. So I coordinate a programme of work to help improve cyber resilience across the third sector in Scotland. And I'm part of the Cyber Scotland Partnership, which is to help improve cyber resilience across the nation as a whole, so working both with organisations and individuals, but my focus is very much third sector. So I was asked to think about the three biggest cyber stories from 2025. There's been a lot this year, and you're probably aware of most of them because a lot of them have been in the media. But I've tried to pick some that are a bit more relevant. So interestingly, the biggest one is Jaguar Land Rover, which happened in August 2025, which has actually been reported as the most damaging in UK history, which I didn't realise until I looked into this in more detail, which is really interesting. The cause of that, they think, is social engineering. So basically, an employee was tricked into giving their credentials, and that allowed the whole thing to kind of happen. But that's all speculation at the moment. They've not actually released a full report on it yet. But you'll all be aware of what the impact was. Obviously, they had to shut down production, and then a lot of suppliers were impacted by it as well because there was no requirement for them to provide the goods that they usually provide. So there was a really large financial loss. I think they're saying it's about 1.9 billion, they think, as a result of that attack, which is obviously why it's the most damaging, I guess, in UK history. And lessons learned, I guess, from that was the risks associated with interconnected manufacturing, specifically in this case, but we could look at that in general, the supply chains and who you're working with as a supplier within your organisation. But I think ultimately it raises the importance of staff awareness and making sure that your staff and volunteers are aware of the types of attacks out there and what the bad guys are going to do and how you can help prevent that. Other ones were Scottish councils. There's Glasgow City, West Lothian, the Western Isles, all experienced attacks throughout the year this year. The West Lothian one specifically looks like that was ransomware. And so that was via a compromised website. And basically, teachers found out when they tried to log in the morning and they weren't able to get onto their computers. And the impact of that was that teachers and pupils obviously weren't able to access the systems, and a bit of data was actually compromised on the education network. So luckily, they kind of segregated or split up their network. So it was only one part of it that was actually impacted. So that was a positive out of it. Obviously, there's quite sensitive data there within the education network itself, so that was a concern. And they've actually done a bit of a lessons learned on the back of it, and they highlighted the importance of having an instant response plan. They had one in place, and they felt like the fact that they had that really helped them respond to it very quickly and effectively. And their IT department have said that they've appreciated the kind of focus on cyber that's come out on the back of it. Previously, they found that maybe some of their direct reports might have been, or their senior leaders were maybe a bit resistant to cyber changes because obviously there can be potential blockers, I guess, associated with that. But they felt like on the back of this, they've been able to make some changes that they've been wanting to make for a while. And so they felt that it's given them a bit of a room. And then the last one is Association of Chairs, which obviously is a third sector organisation. They're based down south. They've not actually released much on the attack and what caused it, but basically they lost access to their website and their domain. So they had a website .org.uk. The way that they kind of responded to it was just changing to getting a new domain. So they purchased associationofchairs.co.uk and they flipped everything across to that. So what they've kind of said on it is that the lessons learned was that the fact that they responded so quickly allowed them to obviously keep operating as an organisation. But as I said, the full details of that haven't come out yet. So I think, in summary, I think the kind of key areas to pay attention to in 2026, in all honesty, haven't changed massively from the ones in 2025. Interestingly, I was in a kind of talk recently, and it was less about lessons learned and just lessons identified, because it's the same basic things that unfortunately are coming up time and time again when it comes to staying safe online. So the key themes are, awareness, making sure your staff and volunteers and your boards are aware of the threats that are out there and how to spot them and how to respond to them. And we've got loads of collateral that we reference to try and help with that. Supplier assurance is a big one. So making sure that you have minimum security standards set with your suppliers. There's again tools for that. There's an organisation called IASME that have a checker tool that you can put an organisation's name in, and it'll tell you if they've got cyber essentials, for example, which is quite a good way of working out whether or not they've gone through the rigour of making sure they're safe online. And then finally, I would say resilience, instant response, making sure you're preparing for the inevitable. So, have you got an instant response plan? Have you tested it recently? Is it up to date? And again, there's lots of tools for that. So, we've got a template that we released, a really simple poster that people can fill in. And there's some new tools available that are free. All of these are free to use. To kind of test that your response plan is working, so a mini kind of simulation. And I can put some of the links to that. To be honest, they're all on the website. I think Maddie's already pasted that in, so that's great. So that's, I guess, a wee summary from me on the cyber landscape.
Brilliant. Thanks, Alison. Just to say we'll have a chance to chat to Alison once we've heard from all the speakers as well. Loads of those links go in the chat box from Maddie. We're going to hear from Sathpal now. Sathpal is going to be talking about green digital products and sustainability. And when we're thinking about developing digital services in 2026, what do we need to think about when it comes to environmental footprint and beyond? So I'll hand over to Sathpal just now.
Great stuff. Thanks, Ross. Good to see you all. Great to be here. Quite a lot to talk about, actually. I know I've only got a short segment, but hopefully we'll pick up some questions, and I will share some links to other resources, etc., during the course of the hour that we've got together. So as Ross says, I'm Sathpal, so everybody calls me Sath. I'm involved in a number of different things, but one of my growing passions, and one of the things I've got involved in this year, is supporting a green PO, which is actually a not-for-profit itself. So it's an organisation providing training and consultancy to help organisations of various sizes and scales to basically think a little bit more about digital sustainability. So we're very much focused on digital sustainability and product. My business partner and I both have backgrounds in long histories in digital product development, digital transformations. We're both agile practitioners, all these sorts of things. One of the key things that we actually worked on this year, which brought some really good insights and learning, was we conducted a survey in Q1 of this year with a cross-sectional group of product professionals. So our mission at Green PO is to help turn every product person into a green product person. Fairly lofty ambition, sure, but that's really what we're ultimately driving towards and advocating for. And in this particular survey, it was a qualitative survey rather than a quantitative one, so focus on a lot of the strategic side of things. We spoke to a range of digital professionals, experienced professionals from across the continent, and tried to understand three key things. So the first element was really the self-awareness piece. So what was their current level of knowledge and know-how in the sustainability landscape? It's quite a complicated space. There's lots of moving parts. There's lots of different dimensions to it. And also then what was their actual level of interest? And critically, what did they feel was their level of influence within their particular organizational context? And all three things are important. So we learned that in terms of know-how, that know-how is actually still on the low side. So digital professionals in other adjacent roles are also still learning and trying to learn what does sustainability really mean for them? What does digital sustainability mean? What can they be doing? And that's a space where Green PO can definitely help in terms of learning and education. Interest is thankfully above average, so level of know-how was below average. Level of interest is slightly higher above average, but influence was interesting because that was quite a diverse scale. So from the participants of this survey, we learned that we had some of the participants who felt that they had quite a lot of influence in their organisations. So on a scale of 1 to 10, right up to 9, and others who felt like they had very little influence. Because one of the things that we've learned is sustainability, digital sustainability primarily, which is where we operate, is still kind of seen more on the kind of cost center compliance side of things. So organizations who are looking at that will largely just focus on any requirement, regulatory compliance type requirements that might be placed on them based on what sector they're in, rather than what we're trying to do, which is really help make that shift from seeing it as a compliance piece to more of a place where there are short-term and medium-term opportunities, and also realistically moving more towards it seen as a strategic advantage, which is really what Green PO was focused on. Trying to help organisations navigate that, look at their current context, look at what they're actually doing right now, and where there might be some missed opportunities. So my partner and I, we've done a number of talks actually over the last few months, various different audiences. We spoke recently at the State of Sustainability and Agile, which is a global event run through Agile Alliance, and also an in-person event with the British Computer Society. But what we continue to hear is that organisations are looking to better understand the regulations. They're looking to better understand where are the wins, and also how can they just learn to measure these things a little bit more. And there's lots of different tools out there, and I'm happy to share some links, etc. But really, there's lots of things we can all do, because what I think we're hearing and what I think is sometimes forgotten is e-waste is huge, and it's if you think about waste in general, right? We put our bins out and whatnot. That's physical, visible. You can see it. E-waste is not visible, right? And therefore, you have to do more to try to make that transparent. And that's really what we're trying to encourage. And the other thing that I think is important to call out before we get into some questions, etc., is IT itself has a huge impact technology. So you'll all have infrastructure, you'll all have digital products, you'll have websites, you'll have mobile phone applications. All of those are contributing to green emissions. And actually, we're now getting to a point where the impact of the tech industry has surpassed the impact of the aviation industry. And I think that's something that when we say it, it seems to blow people's minds because it doesn't seem to be something that folk know, right? So we've now got more than 4% of the greenhouse gas emissions contributions are through tech. And of course, the other challenge, and I think Harry is going to go on to talk about that shortly, is as we see the accelerated pace of AI-related innovations, that's only going to increase. So one of the things we're concerning ourselves with at Green PO is that intersection of sustainability and AI, because there's more demands placed on our infrastructure, there's greater energy consumption. If you've read some of the future gazing type kind of literature that's out there, a lot of the large tech giants are also going to be building these huge data centers, right? Which are going to have incredible implications on communities, as we're competing for resources, the energy consumption of these things, critically water usage, right? So there's quite a lot of things for us. I know some of these things aren't necessarily directly, relevant to maybe smaller businesses or some of what you're doing, but I think they're all connected. And the point that we come back to the Green PO is that we've all got a role to play in this evolving ecosystem. And that's one of the things I'm keen to kind of explore with you all today. So that's a little bit more. There's lots more I could say. I do have packs and things that I can share if that's okay with Ross and Maddie, which goes into more detail around these things, some of the tools that we're using. But we are very much focused on looking at this impact that we're now going to see as we see large language models kind of being quite dominant and energy guzzling and consuming. Though there is some nice projects emerging, which are really looking at smaller language models, which we're now able to measure. So there's some nice projects there that I can also talk about and share. So just a very quick whistle stop. I've been doing quite a lot of these talks lately, so again, it's interesting to know what to cherry pick. But I think knowledge sharing is important, as is how we pay attention to the impact of these things moving forward.
Brilliant. Thank you, Sathpal. Tarek's also put some useful links in the chat box as well, which make one of a nosy at.
Great.
It's grand.
Nice one.
Okay, we're going to hand over to Harry now. Harry is going to be talking about probably one of the big topics that's on everyone's lips for 2026. So AI for effectiveness. And hopefully we'll cut through some of the hype and help you think about how you kind of frame the conversations around this in your organisation. So yeah, over to you, Harry.
Thank you very much. My name's Harry Harrold. I'm responsible for an event called UK Charity Camp. So it's an unconference where the agenda is set by questions attendees want to talk about. So I have data about trends. I've got the text of all the session titles from 2024, 2025 were the ones I analysed. I just dumped that agenda text into a word cloud generator and got a list of how often terms showed up. And the top 5 words in 2024's agenda, in reverse order: small, charities, AI, lunch, and digital. Which makes sense. There were several places you could eat. In 2025, the top 5 words in reverse order were using, tools, lunch, digital, and then in first place, AI. So in 2025, AI is more popular than lunch. That's my trend. Mo Rubenstein ran a session at Charity Camp called, in the immortal words of Rachel Caldercutt, FOMO is not a strategy. Rachel's blogged about it. I'll share the blog post in a bit. Mo's session talked this over. What is, and what I hope is the digital change we'll see in 2025, is purposeful experimentation. Not just FOMO, but FAFO, feel around and find out. I'm using the word feel around because it's worth spending some time on prep, I think. Don't just experiment in the use of AI without checking who's gone before you and what they've found out. Ask around on channels like Ross's Third Sector Geeks WhatsApp group, or check Cast's library of experiments to see what other folk have learned. Again, link in chat later. Specifically, let's not waste time and, importantly, energy consumption as a sector repeating the work of others. Let's build on what someone already knows. Only one person needed to prepare X-ray diffraction images of the crystal structure of DNA to reveal it was a double helix. No one else needed to do that. And her name was Rosalind Franklin. Luckily, we've already worked out specific tasks where AI is useful. It's particularly good at making rubbish first drafts. That's where you can be practicing your technique on well-understood tasks based on what other folk have discovered. If you're lucky enough to have time and space to do something genuinely new, choose an area you know, because generative AI quite literally makes everything up. You need to know if the responses you're getting in your experiment are accurate, because it doesn't. It just knows that that string of words is statistically reliable as a response to the prompt you put in. So use a structured approach. such as Cast's AI experimentation canvas, and then write it up and share so that the rest of us can learn. So there you go. The digital change I dream of this year is purposeful, shared experimentation. But what's really interesting for me is that AI is clearing up in the attention economy. And this is something that you can use. You need to go back to social media and Web 2.0 to find the last change of this magnitude. To give you an idea of how long ago that was, to remind you how long ago that was, it's before my son was born. And he's now second year uni. That is how long ago we had a change of this magnitude. And you can harness that attention. So think of a niggle you've got when you're at work. Tell folk you want to use AI to ease it, and you will get the permission to do so. Maybe a day or so to have a think about it, maybe even the budget to pay someone else to. Couple of examples. We're wasting time reading PDF files attached to requests for funding. How might we use AI to do that for us? Turns out, with a well-structured CRM and a bit of coding, you can save days a year using an AI to do the reading for you, and either grab a bit of data from an unstructured file or tell you it can't so you can. Question number 2. We're wasting time organising dozens of interviews for folk for all over the country who can make sometimes and not others, and are interested in some subjects and not others, who need to be interviewed by an expert in the field, and preferably one who lives nearby so we can minimise our travel budget. Organising interviews was taking a charity that we worked with a couple of weeks of one person's time. How might we use AI to shorten that time? And it turns out that that is a specific case of something I found out afterwards was called the generalized traveling salesman problem, which is a classic computer science problem, and it can be analyzed precisely by code and the actual genuine best answer reliably produced with an algorithm. So obviously these are these examples. They're taken from a project Neon Tribe did for the Martingale Foundation, and I'll be blogging about it and producing a case study shortly, and we will share that, of course. Mr. Fitzgerald rather flatteringly said that I would cut through the hype and surface practical, often surprising ways AIs can help teams in the charity sector work effectively, deliver smarter services, free up capacity. Use Gen I to get a first draft out fast, but make sure it's an area you understand, or you won't know where it's got the detail wrong. Use it to drag a particular piece of data out of a structured document, but put the right guardrails in place so the AI tells you when it's not completely sure of its answer. But the surprising way is to get AI to give organizational attention on pain points in your processes. Use AI to start a conversation with senior leadership and other stakeholders about what is causing you pain, what is taking you time, and the fact that something should be done about it. The really interesting thing about our project for the Martingale Foundation was it was framed as how might we use AI, but the best solution to one of those problems didn't use AI. The word AI, the incantation, the magic word AI, got us the time, the space, and the permission to look at that problem and find the best answer. So there you go. That's my cutting through the hype lie about using AI. Just use it as a way to get people to talk about the problems you've got and give you time to solve them. And I'll finish the Martingale Foundation case study by Christmas, I promise, because sharing, right?
What a
Thank you very
Christmas
much.
present.
What
Thank
a Christmas present.
Thanks,
Even
Harry.
better than a jumper. Cheers.
Yeah. Right, our final speaker, and then we'll get a chance for an open discussion, is Kit Powney, who's Head of Digital Maturity at Tier Fund. So Kit's going to be exploring co-creating digital products and services. So I'm really interested in this one, and then we'll get into our chat. And Kit's got some
Everyone.
slides as well.
I have. I'm to be honest, I won't talk through everything on the slides. They're more for if you want to have a look at them afterwards. Thank you so much for having me. It's brilliant. I've just really enjoyed listening to everyone already. As said, I'm Kit Powney. I work as Head of Digital Maturity at Tier Fund, which is a bit of a jargon job title to say I look at digital transformation. So AI is a lot of my job right now, as you might imagine. But this morning I'm going to share a couple of sort of our strategic thoughts from this year that might be helpful for you as you think about 2026 and how you could use AI, and also what we would love to explore in 2026 around co-creation. So quickly, for those of you that don't know, Tier Fund is an international development agency. We work around ending poverty, and we work through sort of local partners and local churches through sort of a community transformation participation approach of development. But like many of you, we have been on a digital transformation journey over the last couple of years, sort of building that digital mindset, moving away from sort of pockets of digital expertise into sort of a organizational wide capability, breaking down sort of an us versus them around digital and tech. It's just for sort of people in IT or the digital team. Actually, we're all digital workers now, and we can all essentially take all the opportunities that digital offers us. And that was a really wonderful sort of foundation for us as sort of the AI boom came into sort of the public space in 2023, and it helped us sort of continue to build that staff confidence, and it enabled us to sort of to pivot quite well. So this slide is essentially sort of a visual diagram of our roadmap thus far, and thoughts for going forward. But essentially, since 2023, we took an approach of embedding AI that was not actually around developing sort of lots of policies and things. We developed really top-line guidance and guardrails, and decided to over-communicate as our way of upskilling staff. So we've probably run around 20 workshops around sort of AI basics. We're on Google Workspace as well, so we've really been sort of hammering around how to use Google well and sort of the opportunities there, doing sort of prompting workshops, doing show and tells of what other staff are doing as well, getting guest speakers in, and really trying to help people think about what responsible AI looks like in their role. And it's not a sort of specialist thing just for sort of digital or IT people. Alongside that as well, we've been sort of reinforcing expectations as well around bringing your sound judgment to using a tool. All of your sort of data compliance and cybersecurity still apply, even though it's a new exciting tool. But I think as sort of in 2025 and the AI landscape has settled in a way of we know broadly what the opportunities are and broadly what the risks are, even though it's still running sort of a million miles an hour, we decided this year to try and move into sort of a more intentional phase. We opened up Google Tools to everyone, and our vision is not to make people sort of a Google super user. It is thinking about it'd be nice, but it's our sort of charitable purpose. How can people use it to help them in their goals as their team, whether that's an individual or a team, or thinking about sort of the broader strategic alignment. And exactly like Harry said, like, what are the things you're repeatedly doing? What are the things that are annoying you? And AI might not be the answer, but maybe AI assisted could be, or just help you open up that conversation. So this year has been a lot around shifting mindsets, really building that confidence and trying to make experimentation safe across the organisation. I'm not going to talk through all this, but I thought it might be helpful for you if you're looking to sort of develop an AI roadmap. This is a one slide of sort of our strategy. I've made it a little bit broader. Feel free to use it and adapt as you see fit for your organisation. But this has been really helpful for us sort of communicating with leadership and with all the staff of sort of what our goals and visions are around AI. Because as it is changing, our North Star won't, which is for the next sort of 6 to 12 months, we really want to focus on embedding AI responsibly across Tier Fund. So for the last 2 years, we've had sort of one AI working group, and that was a lot of sort of discovery, listening, repeatedly doing the sort of guidelines and guardrails to staff, trying to get people using it and building a sort of a base level competency. Whereas this year, we've actually split it into 3 groups. So we've got sort of an AI and data tools group, which is looking at sort of more the building or even procuring sort of tools. The AI adoption group, which is more sort of the softer culture, strategy, around that, and then also sort of ethics and risk as well. So what Sathpal's been talking about, we work on climate change and we're using AI. How does that sit with our values? We don't want everyone just using deep research for a fun joke in a birthday card. So trying to help people understand sort of uses around AI, but also it is embedded into everything. So what does it look like for us to have a balanced approach? But I hope that's helpful for you. I'm happy to talk more about that later. But another thing that we've been really doing is, I sit in a particular part of the organisation, and we're a global organisation. And in order for us to actually really responsibly adopt AI, we need to help people have the right level of digital literacy for them to be able to have a sort of a seat at the table to see the opportunities. So these are the three sort of questions we've been asking people and sort of doing workshops with people. So again, sharing them with you if they're helpful for you thinking about your AI roadmap. But essentially, it's that strategic alignment. How is it going to help your strategy, or is it just something exciting that you'd like to play around with? Which we all get distracted by, let's be honest. And also that values alignment piece. And, you can think about, you could do that sort of mapping across your organizational values, or actually maybe if you're an individual team, you might have not different values to different teams, but the way that you operate, you might value human contact more, say if you're a major donor, or something like that. And then human-centered as well, especially when we're thinking about sort of the agentic era, like how much sort of human in the loop do you want? Some people talk about like a 70-30%, or are you looking to just have AI assisted workflows, or actually not AI at all and like automation? But trying to help people have those conversations to think about what does that responsible use look like in their team. But those have been two really helpful things for us at Tearfund over this last year to sort of really build the understanding and get people talking as well. Looking forward to 2026, we are going to continue to sort of work on strengthening digital literacy, really focusing on Gemini as well, because it's all within our ecosystem. So we know there's a certain level of security there, which is really lovely. And again, it's not the whole Gemini super user. It's just making sure that people are actually thinking about how they can use AI to help them be more productive and efficient, so then they can actually have time to free up, whether that's for their discipline, whether they're a UX designer, or whether they're global and, it's actually going out to meet local partners. People don't want to be sitting on spreadsheets unless they actually love spreadsheets. So how can we continue to help people see those opportunities? But we're also going to sort of launch this next year again, really going, we are looking at sort of updating policies and, cybersecurity training, make sure AI is in there and all of that. But again, we are basically opting for sort of over communication. We're doing micro training, and we're launching quarterly flagship AI events, which are going to be like an hour to an hour and a half, talking about what's new, what are the new risks, what are the new opportunities, and hopefully getting in sort of guest speakers. So also, if any of you have any exciting case studies you'd like to come and talk to Tearfund about, I'll have that. Great. So we're going to be really focusing on that. And then lastly, we are an international development agency, and a lot of our work is really deeply sort of contextual, and we want our use of all digital technology, but AI specifically as well, to really reflect that. And there's so much opportunity with like languages and cultures in the places that we work, and we don't want to assume that tools we create in the UK are going to work everywhere, or even that we need to scale everything. Sometimes actually things created for a specific user can be the best and more powerful than something you're creating to scale. But we're really going to be pushing into co-creation this year to ensure that sort of our work and our AI work remains grounded in sort of the people and purposes for why we exist. We know through a lot of our work already that the communities know best, and they know what the challenges are in their location. They know what and know how to identify the resources. So it's about us figuring out, especially sort of low code and vibe coding and agentic, how can we give the right level of technical guidance so that we can sort of mitigate risks and help people understand the bias and different things that come within different tools, but also in a way that is going to free people up to be able to innovate in their own space. And also, I just want to encourage all of us that whatever context we're in, I actually think as digital leaders, we are really well set up to think about AI and co-creation, because if we think about sort of UX or service design or agile leadership, we actually already have a lot of the building blocks, and it's just sort of transposing it into the slightly new space of AI and super intelligence and all of that is slightly terrifying and exciting all at once. But the approach that we're thinking, again, more in the strategic space around co-creation is thinking about it from a ripple effect. So if we work on sort of strengthening staff and partners and communities, then the ripple effect will go out. So that is our sort of hopes and dreams for the next year. But as you look ahead sort of to 2026, I would love to ask you 3 questions. So one is, who needs to be involved in shaping your digital and AI work next year? And are they the right voices? Where could AI free up time for the things that matter most? Very much what Harry was saying. And what are those sort of small, safe experiments that you can start in 2026 so you can start to learn together? I'm happy to talk more about it. Thank you for listening. I'll make sure the slides are available.
Amazing. Thank you, Kit. That was great. So we've got time for questions. Maddie, any popped up in the chat box so far, or should we just open it up to the room?
The only one is Tarek was asking, which was for Alison, around tools for training. So thinking about what tools do people use for training?
Yeah, which I'm happy to answer, but I'm conscious he was asking out for peers of what other people on the call to share what they're using. I think Tarek said he's using KnowBe4 at the moment for cybersecurity training. We reference a lot of free materials. So National Cybersecurity Centre do free e-learning modules that you can incorporate into your, if you have a e-learning platform, or you can just link to them if you don't. We also worked with GCBS to get them added to the TSI Learning portal. So if anyone's using that, which is a free e-learning tool available to third sector organisations, then the NCSC modules, security modules, are already in there. And then we run like a awareness campaign, because we talk about training little and often. So not just doing the e-learning modules, but also maybe every quarter, just showcasing a topic, whether or not it's like phishing, which is one of the biggest, or it's strong passwords, or keeping your devices up to date. So things, just to reiterate some of the core messages in the e-learning, to make people aware of kind of what's out there. But yeah, I think Tarek or someone else has just put +1 for KnowBe4. But if there's anyone else that has any other ones that they want to share that they're using, but there are free tools available as well for those who don't want to pay for them.
Brilliant. Thanks, Alison. That's great. Okey-doke. I think we'll just open up to the room if anyone wants to use the raise hand function in Zoom, and then we can pick someone and then you can ask a question for any of our speakers. Failing that, I've got plenty of questions. Okay, Rachel, do you want to unmute and you can ask away?
Hi, thank you. That was very interesting. I've got 2 questions, one for Kit and one for Sathpal, if I can. So Kit, I was wondering what kind of feedback do you get from your staff with this whole new strategy? Basically, are people quite happy to get on board, or are they more like concerned maybe about what it is? And then Sathpal, I was wondering, I think I take the point that tech is the biggest emission now, but what can we do at our level, so small level, even as citizens, because it's not going to go away. So can you maybe give some practical things? The only thing I can think of is maybe limited your use of it, but I can't see that staying, even if you limit now, is going to increase. Your limit is going to increase. So I'd like to get a bit more practical thing.
Yeah, brilliant question. So we have a mixed response, I would say. So if you think we have 5 generations of people in the workplace, and there's a lot of different ways then people will engage with digital technology, or their sort of approach or potential assumptions around it. And then as well, I often think about it, if you think about the early adopter, sort of innovator, early adopter, late adopter, laggards curve as well. So we probably have people across all of that. We have some innovators who are super excited and are like, Kit, look at this thing I just made on Gemini. How cool is this? Which is great. And then we have people as well who maybe don't see the relevance of it right now, or are more cautious around it. And I think that's why I've really prioritized a lot of sort of face time with the organization. So we are doing generic workshops of like, here's 101 and here's prompting, but a lot of it as well is going to team meetings. I also do sort of AI, what we call surgery drop-ins, which is time in my calendar, you can sort of book it and come and talk to me about it. And people that, maybe have concerns around sort of climate change or many of the other ethical issues around AI. I'm also like come and join the conversation, come to the AI risk working group. If you're, the capacity around AI is hard, I think, across the charity sector. Most of us don't have an AI role. Everyone's trying to fit it into their current role. So I'm like, if you've got energy for this, if you're reading stuff, come along, tell us, help us inform and shape it as we go along. And I think as well, being honest about it, that there are challenges, and I think that really helps people rather than sort of focusing maybe on the boom, rather than actually how we mitigating these challenges, what are we going to do, and how are we actually paying attention rather than just running away with AI.
Thanks, Kit.
Yeah.
Sathpal, do you want to jump in quickly on that one? I'm conscious of
Yeah,
time.
yeah. I'll
Yeah.
just to pick up on Kit's point there, and I've just finished a program of exploring generative AI for businesses with Cambridge. And the key thing there is that we have to remind ourselves that although AI is what it is and everybody's jumping on the bandwagon and it's this big thing and it's exploded since ChatGPT, it is just another technological innovation. So you have to find the right problems to solve. And there's a risk that organizations are running around essentially, searching for, problems to solve, right? So I think a considered approach is very, very important. The same thing applies to sustainability and how we look at that to bring it back to your question, Rachel. So on a personal level, we can all do something, and that could be as simple as how we manage our mailboxes. Because everything we do from a technology perspective has consequences, right? When we search, online, when we, do a prompt through a generative AI tool, everything has a cost. Everything contributes to carbon emission. So we can definitely do less of this stuff, but being sensible about managing our mailboxes is even, a very simple but real example. Most of us probably have these overflowing, email boxes and they need management. Maybe we've got mail we don't, we could be deleting. I talked earlier and I touched on it because there's so much to cover and I simply don't have the time. But e-waste is massive. So organizations are storing data and information, and 80% of it is essentially going to be useless or not touched or used ever again after about 3 months. So I think thinking about what you're storing, and of course there's GDPR and all these things that, we remember when we all got involved in that, but looking consciously at, what do you really need to keep and have? What can you delete? And even are you being, considered enough around about your own adoption of cloud, for example? So organizations are, and everybody's got, we're all storing information somewhere, right? Are we doing it in the most efficient, meaningful way? Have we got processes in place where we can delete things in a periodic manner? Are we genuinely keeping what we need? Because all of that has cost and implications. Most organizations of whatever size and scale they are have websites. There are tools out there that you can use to actually measure your own energy emissions and your contributions to carbon. So EcoGrader is a really good one. So if you search for EcoGrader, stick your URL in there, it will give you very valuable report into the implications of your site, how much energy you're consuming, user experience, the storage. So for example, my own website, I host that on a cloud provider who uses renewable energy sources. So there's all kinds of things we can be doing. I don't have time to get into them all, but does that help? I mean, if you want to talk more, reach out to me. I've shared some resources in there because I didn't have the time to go through them all, but there's lots of things in there. But feel free to connect and get in touch if you want to talk more about how to explore these things. But there's lots we can do, but it starts with us. That's the point. And then you
Thanks,
scale it
Sathpal.
up to teams and organizations. Sorry, Ross.
No, that was great. Thank you. Right, any other questions? It'd be great to hear from some of our other speakers as well on those questions. Anyone want to jump in? I got Borders Community Action. Sorry.
Hi Ross, it's Sharon here.
Hi, Sharon. Sorry.
That's okay. I'm relatively new to Borders Community Action, and I'm getting more and more into using AI. The way I've started using it is around, we've got a lot of trust deeds for old halls and stuff like that, and trying to convert them into modern language because the language in them is crazy. And also trying to pull stuff out of constitutions and trust deeds and annual reports and stuff like that. But somebody mentioned guardrails. We have put some in place, but I just wondered if someone could elaborate on that. And I take it these are guardrails, as in, if I'm looking for something in relation to charity law, I should have a guardrail in there, being Oscar or SEVO and stuff like that. Is that what you mean when you say guardrails?
Harry, do you want to come in on that one?
Yeah, that was me. Yes, exactly so. So there's sort of two ways of thinking about this. The first way is to use a tool like Google LLM and give it the source documents that you want to have examined. The other way is add lines of context to your prompts, which say things like, which give the AI instructions like, imagine you are a sort of person who wishes to understand this sort of subject. What sort of answer would you give to this question? So you can instruct an AI to role play, which helps get the kind of wording in a response that you're looking for. I've had great success with tone of voice changes in documents, by the way. That's a cracking use case for AI.
Can you ever go too in depth with your prompts? You know, if you put in a whole list of prompts or paragraphs?
I don't think that I have. Others will know better. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I haven't. Others will know better. That's a really interesting question. I will ask around some properly knowledgeable people and see if that's a feasible thing to do.
That's brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah, I do know we've added a lot of lines of context to prompts designed to teach young people some of the values and some of the challenges of AI. We surrounded those with a lot of guardrails. I will find out how many and I will get back to you.
Okay, lovely. Thank you for that.
Just on top of what Harry said, the kind of projects, I mean, it'll be different terminology depending on the platform you use, but the kind of projects functionality built into most AI tools now, so particularly like ChatGPT, where you're having a series of conversations on a specific project or piece of work. So if I am using ChatGPT to kind of help frame our digital trustees program, that's in a digital trustee specific project, and it kind of tends to limit the hallucination. It tends to limit ChatGPT just going to the internet and finding something and bringing it in. So every time we have a conversation, we're not just starting afresh in a new window, we're keeping it in that kind of project-based space. Like tools like Notebook LM from Google are particularly good at that. Just to add into Harry's stuff as well, when we're thinking about the guardrails, one of the things we'll always do is we'll always say, I want you to work to this set of guidelines or this framework or these principles. And that keeps things kind of quite nice and neat. So, for example, if we're working on like content redesign for pages for a charity, we might say, use the principles from Sarah Winter's book, Content Design, or look at the 15 principles from Good Services book by Lou Down. You can use that as a way of giving it a bit more of a kind of confined space to operate within, because otherwise it's quite difficult to know the parameters that it's going out to when it thinks about the end product that it's going to give you. Just as a final thing as well, the more that you can give it examples of what good looks like, the easier it's going to be to get to the end product that is good in your head as well. Cool, right. Any other questions? We've probably got time for one or two more, I would say. Patrick.
Hi, folks. Thanks very much. Patrick Grady. I'm Policy and Communications at Scotland's International Development Alliance. So I'm quite interested, Kit, in how this gives life to really practical outcomes. So, how would one of Tier Fund's partners in Malawi or Zambia, for example, know that AI, has improved? What's the positive outcome for a smallholder farmer from the work that's being done, right back at the kind of level that you're talking about. I'm just really interested in whether it's even possible to measure that at this stage, how these things roll right through to the actual delivery. And I'm sure this applies in other sort of charitable service delivery contexts as well. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant question. I don't know if I have a full answer, but I'll give you an example of what we're experimenting with right now. So Prabhu is our head of Asia. He's in Sri Lanka, and he founded our sort of transforming masculinities work, which is around sexual and gender-based violence. 10 years ago when he started it, he would be traveling around delivering the work to various communities. Fast forward a couple of years, moved into sort of a facilitator approach. So then he's training trainers, facilitators who then base globally, who then deliver it in their local context. But now we literally have thousands of people that want to be trained by his team, which again, we cannot scale Prabhu, but we can scale his work. So he actually approached us, and he'd been playing around with sort of Google tools, and he's like, I've put in all of my conference talks, I've put in all the training, because we have another team as well called Comms for Development, and they are part of the organization that is specifically for essentially global work, sharing our approaches, and they operate in lots of different languages, and there's lots of learning that we can take from there into the AI space. But specifically on this project, so he's got like so much content from there, we've got online courses on it, all of our internal documents and stuff, and he was essentially trying to develop sort of a chatbot for the first sort of port of call for these facilitators. And the conversation we're having around is, we've taken it into a different tool that was sort of more flexible, and we could do more with, and we're piloting that with an internal community of practice, and then we'll come back and sort of iterate again, and then we'll go actually external, outside of sort of technically TIFF partners, and start seeing how that's developing. But I think alongside that, we're still going to be having Prabhu and his team traveling around. That's only one part of the sort of learning of the approach. But with that, people might not have laptops and TVs, but almost everyone has access to the internet. And if Elon Musk's promises around Starlink come true, then we could make it something that anyone could actually access and be able to use themselves. So I think there are opportunities there, but it's just making sure it's the right level of human in the loop, I would say, because there's certain things you don't want to be self-serving AI tools for. Yeah, a slight side, but the sort of
that's
thinking,
really interesting.
Thus far. Yeah.
Thanks, Kit. That was great. We've probably got time for one last question before we wrap up. Has anyone?
Joshua put a question in the chat box.
I'm gonna try and answer that very quickly, because I'm conscious. You can turn it off, so you can turn off there's a toggle switch in most LLM tools where you can turn off training the model with your data. I don't know, Harry, given that your talk was on AI, anything you want to add into that, Joe?
I've just written exactly the same response in the chat to Joshua. So yeah, that's definitely true.
Cool. Nice one. Grand. Okay. Any other final questions before we finish up?
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Yep.
So just from any third sector organization, I'm just keen to understand organizational current or 2026 strategy for automation and integration, particularly third sector charity use case. What's in place, and is there a future roadmap for any organization of interest? Thank you.
Okay. So the question's around kind of automation use cases. I'm conscious, we've got about 3 minutes left, so we're going to have to be brief, but I wonder if anyone wants to share any resources around automation, maybe examples, for example, or any kind of big lessons.
Yeah, what tool are you using? What's your roadmap or strategy? You can put in the chat box, or I'll drop my email. I'm happy to, get resources from there. Thank you.
Any of our speakers want to pick that one up before we finish up?
I'm not sure I've fully got the automation of.
I'm assuming processes in the organization.
Wow,
we're gonna have to wrap up in a wee.
I was going to say that's a
It's a
fairly
big question.
Yeah.
Maybe this is one we'll pop in the chat box if anyone's got links to any examples. one of the things I would encourage you to go and look at, Joshua, is Cast has some really good examples on its website around charities that have put in some form of automation or AI and has practical kind of case studies. Also, SCVO's AI guide has a lot of stuff around kind of principles around automation in there, and they're two things I would go and look at as a starting point. So we've got 2 minutes left, and I think maybe just worth kind of wrapping up. What I would love from each speaker, I'm putting you on the spot here, is like if there's one thing that you would like charities to think about or do going into the new year, what would it be? So, Kit, I'm going to pick you first because you're first on the screen to me.
I think it would be to use AI where you can already use it. So there's probably lots of quick wins for you.
Yep.
You will have a lot of data already in-house, and you will have a tool in-house. So use that before going to something big and spending a lot of time and energy on before you quite know what you're wanting to do with it.
Thank you. Sathpal, what's yours?
You have really put us on the spot.
I know.
I didn't talk today, and we talk a lot about this at Green PO and I've done recently about the handprint, which is not as well an understood concept. So as well as, understanding your carbon footprint and trying to measure that, and however you might need to do that, wish to do that, think about the positive impact of offsetting any reductions you can make in your carbon emissions. So, and build that into your your product offering and into your business strategy as well. Is what I
Brilliant.
would
Thank you,
encourage.
Sathpal. Alison, what about you?
I'd probably go back to one of the points earlier. Make sure that you've got a paper version of your cyber incident response plan, because obviously, if you experience a cyber attack, you won't have access to your computers. And if you do already have one of those, then test it and make sure it's up to date, because these things do, go out of date quite quickly. So, yeah, that would be my ask.
Brilliant. Thanks, Alison. And Harry, finally.
Experiment with a purpose, measure your impact. Measure the
Brilliant.
impact of what you're doing with an AI. It's only a tool after all.
Brilliant. That's a lovely, lovely place to finish on. So thank you so much for everyone coming along. We've managed to finish 11 on the dot. Thank you so much to our speakers. So we've heard from Alison Brogan, Sathpal Singh, Harry Harrold, and Kit Powney. You can connect with them all on LinkedIn after the call today. Thanks to my co-host, Maddie, today. And we'll be back with DigiShift in the new year. So you can go and find out more about DigiShift on the SCVO events page. You can also watch this video back. So if you want to share it with any of your colleagues, it will go live on the SCVO YouTube in a couple of days' time. Have a nice Christmas, everyone, when it comes. And yeah, it's not long. Thanks so much for joining us.